All right, we come to the part what we came here for. I'm going to ask each candidate to stand up, introduce himself, give a 2-minute opening statement, and I would like. Do what?
He said 2 is great. I said you need more too.
2? Oh, well. Yeah, but you have lots of talking after that. Well, I never hold it to 2 minutes, but we're going to hold it at least because we've only got about an hour, a little, almost an hour and a half. So if you've got a question, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Now I want to keep this civil, polite. If you've got a beef that you want to get nasty about, I'm not going to let you. But if you've got a legitimate question that you'd like to ask one of the candidates up here, and the lady, I'll call on you and you can answer. And I've got a few questions up here that somebody gave me, so I'm going to ask them after the call. And I'm going to start with Mr. Carter.
Start with me. We're debating on who's splitting Danny's water. Thanks, Roy. I first want to thank everybody for coming out and thank for the Tea Party for hosting this. My name is Lane Carter, and I'm running for City Council, Single Member District 5. I'm born and raised in San Angelo, Texas, all 28 years of my life. I went to Central High School, 2006. I went to ASU twice, 2010 with a nursing degree, or a biology degree, and 2012 with a nursing degree. I'm currently an OR nurse at the Shannon Surgery Center, and I remodel houses on the side. It was the last month of nursing school that I met my wife, Paige. Been married for 3 years now, and we have one little boy on the way. Born and raised in San Angelo, and that is why I'm running for City Council, because I care about my city. There are a bunch of key points that I'm going to hit on. Number 1 will be infrastructure. Number 2, communication. Number 3, business development, and fee and tax and spend bureaucracy in our city. So, water lines, the streets, public safety has been neglected by our taxpayer money. We need to focus on that essentially first. The communication needs to be brought back between the council and constituents. Only a select few of everybody is being represented through our council currently. My goal is to strive out and get 100%. Everybody needs to have a voice represented through the council, whether it be me going door to door as I am now through campaigning, or they come to meetings or come to me through email or a phone call. Business development. One of the key points that I want to hit on is how restrictive our city is on business development in our town. I have heard many times through people trying to come here and establish a business, and the businesses that are established currently in San Angelo, of how restricted our city is on getting permits, zoning, etc. That needs to stop, along with the tax and spend bureaucracy of our town. We are one of the highest taxed towns, highest fees in our towns. You can have one or the other. If you have higher fees, you need to have a little tax break, but that's not happening. I'll hit on a couple of points here in a little bit, but I'm going to pass the baton off to the next one.
Thank you, Lane. Like Lane, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to keep this with me. It makes me feel a little bit more secure because we've been doing this so many times. It is so easy to get a little bit sidetracked. I'm also afraid we're kind of beginning to sound like one another. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Elizabeth Grindstaff, and I worked for 24 years in municipal government, 7 of which were here in San Angelo. I came to you as your planning director and retired as your assistant city manager. I now work for Texas Pacifico Railroad. We're the regional railroad, moving a lot of frac sand out to West Texas. It's been a great job and a real learning experience being in private sector, and it's been very good for me. I'm the mother of 2 teenagers at Central High School. I'm getting ready to get one off to Texas Tech, and I'm pretty excited about that. I've got another one that's going to have 2 more years here in San Angelo. We have loved it here. I am not born and bred here, but I came here, as we say, just as fast as I could. I'm a member of Emmanuel Episcopal Church. I'm a former board member of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Airport Advisory Board. I have a bachelor's and master's degree from Texas A&M University. Oh, thanks. Okay, thank you. One whoop is good, even if it's just one whoop in the room. My interest in running for re-election is to use my unique skills and knowledge of this organization for the betterment of our community. What I am promoting are streamlined processes to help with development. I want to secure an affordable water supply for the future, encourage economic development in general, and reduce the tax burden on individuals by growing a larger, more diverse tax base. The challenges that face our city right now require experience and understanding of complex issues, and I have the ability to do both. I have a demonstrated passion for public service and look forward to continuing to use that passion to improve all of the lives of our citizens. I've been endorsed by the San Angelo Firefighters Association, which I'm very proud. Mr. Richardson and I have had a little bit of a discussion about that. I'm not going to make you any promises that I can't keep. And this election, I think, is very important for the future of our city. And I hope you see that experience is on your side. Thank you. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is R.A. Cantrell. I'm running for District 5 as well. And I was going to spend a lot of my time talking about Elizabeth. In the positive, as you can see, she's an altogether lovely woman. She's a kind and caring person and an intelligent and engaged public servant. She bills herself as honest, active, and conservative. Now, I know she's honest and active, but I might challenge the conservative aspects. I am running because the last straw that pushed me into it was the dog ordinance, where the city decided to intrude into our lives and tell us how we have to act, how we have to handle our dogs. I don't think that is a conservative way to use government. It's intrusive, and it's kind of a big-time liberal thing to do. The other issues that are on everybody's mind are water and garbage contract. When I go door to door asking for votes, mention the garbage contract, people explode. Is there anybody in here who's a resident of single member District 5? Dang, I gotta get a bunch of votes here. Are y'all real happy with the new service, not being able to use your alleys and things like that? I don't have to even.
I'm thrilled with it.
Well, I know, because you don't have an alley, and if you had, you'd park your truck in it. But basically, it's hard to run against an incumbent without being critical, and I certainly don't want to be personally critical of Elizabeth. But she said she was supported by the Firefighters Association. That's a trade union, probably one of the few trade unions in the city, and they did contribute heavily to her candidacy. And I don't think that's what you would call conservative. But I think I'll give up the mic and wait on some questions.
All right, usually doesn't sit down that quick, so I'm a little surprised I got the microphone.
My knee hurts.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Harry Thomas. I'm a long-term resident of San Angelo. I moved back in 1971 after 8 years in the Air Force. Was stationed at Goodfellow. Fell in love with San Angelo and the people in San Angelo. Worked for Goodyear for 40 years. The last 20, I was their chief accountant. Earned my degree from Angelo State in accounting while I was working for Goodyear. Served at a lot of nonprofits over the years. I'm in my 20th year on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. I served twice on the United Way Board, twice on the Convention and Visitors Board, and twice on the Leadership Alumni Board. Just finished serving 6 years on the Fort Concho Museum Board and 4 years on the Fort Concho Foundation Board. Presently, I serve on the local Elks Board and Rush Street Ministries Advisory Board. Nearly 18 years ago, I was one of the founding members of the Texas Alliance of Boys and Girls Club. Today, we serve over 345,000 children in 118 Texas cities. I'm their treasurer. I still serve on that board today. As a concerned citizen, I've attended nearly every single council meeting in the last 3.5 years. So I know what the issues are. Even though I'm not an incumbent, I guarantee you that I think a lot about what goes on every day at the council meetings. I look at that background information. I get in and look at the detail. Got to go to a property to take a look at it because it's becoming in front of the council. I'll do that. What would I do if I was elected? What I like to do is take a look at long-term water solutions. My granddaughters are 4 and 7. I want to make sure that their grandchildren have water. I don't want to kick the can down the road just a little ways. I want to see solutions for 50 years from now. We always talk about infrastructure needs. Certainly, we've got a plan now to take care of water, sewer lines, and streets. It's got to have a council that's council members that are disciplined enough to do that, and fiscally shrewd enough to ensure that the money's there to take care of it in the time frame that we receive. I've been endorsed by the San Angelo Firefighters Association, the San Angelo Realtors Association. There are a lot of people in this community that think that I will do a good job. So let me tell you just a little bit. As an accountant, everything that we take a look at in the city has to do with money. So I'll be your eyes on the bottom line as we take a look at this.
My name is Bill Richardson. My wife and I moved here from, not too long, from Edmonton, Alberta, over 21 years ago. I worked for the government there. I was a cartographic technologist. My wife is an RN, and Shannon was up to recruiting nurses, and we had just elected a new premier, and our department was getting cut back, so I took early retirement. Shannon was up there recruiting nurses, so we thought, come down here and try for a couple of years. We've been here for 20 years. We liked it, and it's our home. The reasons why I'm running for city council are multiple. I believe there's too many user fees, there's too many ordinances. The water supply, I don't agree with the, what they call it, potty or whatever. Project. Pardon me? Potty water, yeah. Anyway, our previous, the water expert at the water department, he's a biologist, and he pointed out that the process will, hello? Okay. That the process will not eliminate every particle of pollutants that are in there. Plus, okay, he points out that the process will kill the bacteria coming from the toilet water, but it's not going to remove all the petrochemicals, and there's certain chemicals that are not covered by the Water Act, which will not be tested for. And as I said earlier today, I was in an interview, and I said that if you consider the small particles, if you live in West Texas, and you know what dust is like, after a while it builds up, and they're small particles. Okay, and as one of the things is the dog ordinance. I don't agree with that. I think it should be a individual right. I think that's an invasion of individual and private property rights. The trash contract is not very good. Sheldon Kelton, our operations director, is working on that. The contract can be adjusted, and there's a clause in the contract to adjust it, and it'll take more small steps. He's he's negotiating with Republic to change the boat pickup, and one thing that I would like to see is that larger families, okay, there's only 2 of us in our house, but larger families, you've got 3 or 4 kids and a husband and wife, you need 2 trash cans. And I think, I don't want to take up too much time, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. But one other thing that was struck upon, I never agreed with the firefighters union or any civil service union donated to politicians. I think it's wrong for city employees to donate to a city politician. And during the Republican primary last November, the voters approved Proposition 3, which will prohibit cities and any government entity from collecting dues from the firefighters unions or any civil service association or union. And I think that will put an end to them. I don't think anybody that steps up to run for city council should be opposed by a group of city employees. Thank you very much.
Well, first off, good evening, and thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. I'm Trinidad Aguirre. I'm running for City Council SMD1, so it's Bill and I running for the same district. Just to clarify, I'm not running against that side of the table. They have their own race to run. The question always comes up, and why am I the right person for the City Council? And we all have to answer that. So let me give you a little bit about my background. First off, from the educational, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, and I've got a master's degree in telecommunications and numerous other educational awards for being active in the intellect. For instance, I've got an engineering degree, I've got a project management degree, and all of those other national accreditations. I was the president of Verizon, and I've also started 2 small companies here in San Angelo, both extremely successful. What I wanted to do was to understand the pains of the small business and see what are those things that we need to do to help them out. We always seem to focus on the new businesses coming in. I'd like to see what we can do for some of the existing businesses that are here. I've been your public servant for many years. You trusted me with the charter review, and that was the changing of, I guess, our declaration or our charter for the city of San Angelo. We got 7 of the 8 amendments passed, and it was very, very successful. And I applaud my team members because I think they're the ones that really stepped up to the table. I'm partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Centers. The latest project I'm on, I traveled with your Economic Development Director to Dallas. We met with Frontier since they took over for Verizon. They guaranteed me at least 60 jobs will be coming to San Angelo, and what we're trying to do now is see if we can fill the Johnson Street building and potentially some of the other ones. The home run that if I can achieve by being on the City Council would be for them to bring the entire engineering department to San Angelo. They have the facilities and they have the assets here, so depending on what happens, we may be very successful with Verizon going forward. I've received a lot of awards during my career. One that I'm especially proud of, I was named as one of the top 100 most influential Hispanics in America. What that meant was that I could interact and deal with almost any group of individuals out there. And that was from the labor unions to the CEOs of companies. Whenever there was a contract to be negotiated, I was always on the top tier to go meet with the different CEOs. As mentioned earlier, we've got a contract negotiation, potentially with Republic. I don't have all the details, won't have them until you're in office. But if there is a way that we can go meet with their CEO, we'll take every avenue to do the right thing. The last thing is promising to listen. Each one of you has a voice, and each one of you has an item that you would like to be brought to the City Council. I know how to do those things. I will listen. I think I know many of you in this room, and you know that I have the capability of taking action. The one question that I think that you should ask all of us, and I took this from one of our state representatives, when you're up here and you're asking us the questions, ask us how we're going to get it done. It's very simple to give you the promises that it will be done, but ask us how. Very few of us can answer that question. Thank you.
Cost you $5.
Okay, thank you.
Real
You
quick.
know, you don't have to be on city council to find out what's going on with the contract. I picked up a contract, a copy of the contract from the city clerk's office, and I was able to read it. It explains exactly what's going on between the Republic and the city. Thank you.
All right, just keep going. Okay, now we come to the fun part. Like I say, if you'll be polite and brief, well, you don't have to be very brief, but make your question to the point. If you want it for all the candidates, they can all take turns answering those questions, if that's what you would like. This is an open forum. We want to have fun. We want to make it interesting, and I promise I won't let anybody pick on you guys. So just be it easy, and ladies. Now, let's take some questions. First one, Anna.
Reading in the Texas scorecard, I read where Texas has the second highest local debt per capita. Only to, New York is up, beats us. So we're second in all of the states, only beat by New York. How would each of you reduce our local debt? How would you address that? Because that's like 50,000 per a household of 4.
I like it when I have the microphone first. Well, first off, she asked a question about Texas. What I'd like to do is go back and take a look at San Angelo first. When you take a look at San Angelo has an A+, double A+ credit rating. That's what we control, and I think the mayor and his staff has done an excellent job for us to get that credit rating. We have about $205 million in debt, and 102 of that was for the water Hickory plant. So when you take a look at 50% of the debt here in San Angelo, it is, half of it was for water. So when you bring it down to that level, it was well spent. We've got approximately $2,000 per person here in San Angelo, or in Tom Green County. So we have controlled the debt here in San Angelo, and there's, you can look at the different ways of payment, for other things. One of them is tax-based or revenue-based. So overall, to answer your question, what I'd like to do is go meet with those Texans that don't know how to control their budget, bring them to San Angelo, and teach them how we do it here in San Angelo, because we're doing it right here in San Angelo. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
A lot of this also is the school debt, too.
I can't really speak to the school debt, maybe someone else can. We're strictly for the city.
Include the school debt.
Okay.
I believe I know what you're talking about. I know where you're getting your figures from, and they don't agree with the figures that Trinidad has proposed, and which is right and wrong. But I know what you're talking about, and that debt included the school board and the total debt for the city, and I know exactly what you're talking about. One thing that we can do to reduce our debt and keep our debt in line and keep our credit rating is not waste money, not borrow money for projects such as this potty water project. It'll stretch our borrowing to be to the point where we're not able to service any more debts. Okay, and you talk about the state of Texas. The state of Texas, under roads, up until 2000, they paid their own way. And then they started borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And then the credit card was out, run out. And then that's when they started, up until 2000, they paid their own way. And then after that, they started borrowing and borrowing and borrowing until the credit card ran out. And this is why they came out with the new legislation which takes, I forget now exactly where they took the money from, but we can borrow it from them. Okay, we can borrow our tax money and then pay interest on it. That doesn't sound right. And the best thing that we can do, okay, with our infrastructure, it's been ignored up until now, and the solution is to go into debt, borrow a bunch of money. It should have been looked after and maintained periodically up to this date, so that we don't come to a time when we have to go into massive debt. And if you look at the way that's done, it's presented in front of council, people don't have time to look at it, react to it, and it's big rush, they gotta get it done right away. They don't want to give people time to look at it. Thank you.
And I'll only speak to the city debt. Again, I'm not completely familiar with what the school board did, although I know my children went to school here, and Dr. Carol Ann Bounds is a friend of mine, but those schools were in terrible shape. So I'll take a little bit of what Bill Richardson said, is we've kicked the can down the road so far, it's time now that we've got to pay the piper. Unfortunately, the people that are in this room, the citizens of San Angelo, are the ones that are going to have to pay the brunt of that. As an accountant, I'll still be watching the bottom line for everybody that's in here, watching how we spend those tax dollars. But if we're going to take care of the infrastructure needs that we have today, water and sewer lines, street repairs, the water needs, all of those things are going to take a little money. Now, do they all have to be done at one time? Not necessarily. So we can take a look at how we're structured. I'll also talk about, piggyback on what Trinidad said, and that's simply that with the credit rating that we have today, and $2,000 approximately for every citizen of San Angelo, that's probably the lowest that you're going to find in most cities, and certainly one of the lowest in this state. So we'll just continue to watch those things and make sure that we're spending the tax dollars in the appropriate way.
Thank you. I would not borrow any more money in the name of the citizens for any reason at any time. I would again reduce our indebtedness. Currently, I asked one of the city financial guys to just describe our debt and tell us what, how many bonds and what duration. So they couldn't even do it. They said, well, I'll have to get back to you. But I would challenge each and every one of you here to go to the City of San Angelo's website and go to the bottom, contact us. Then it will give you an alphabetical opportunity to review all the employees at City Hall. Please go to each letter and look at all the job descriptions and positions there. And if you go through that whole alphabet and you think that's the right number of people doing the right thing with your money, keep giving it to them.
A couple of thoughts come to mind. Some of the states that you might be talking about also have a state income tax. I don't think anybody here wants to promote that idea. So if we compare apples to apples, you can find cities that have greater debt and less debt. But I think in the end, the question really is, and I understand it's a philosophical issue about being stewards of public dollars. Do you own a home? How many people in this room are homeowners? How many people in this room bought that house outright? And how many, and see, the number just went down tremendously. So if there is a large capital expenditure, sometimes financing it is the way to do it right. I think our problem, though, can be our fear to spend on the right projects keeps us from investing in our infrastructure and puts us in a place like we are right now. Nobody wants to stand up here and say, I'm going to waste the taxpayers' dollars. Everybody up here wants to be very judicious. But the truth is, we all have different priorities. But I think we're looking at a city at a time when infrastructure and big ticket items are before us. It's like the water project. Do we need more water, or are we secure where we are? Does our water supply allow us to grow in the future? Will it support industry? Will it support Goodfellow Air Force Base, our largest single employer going forward? That's kind of a scary question to ask. So what is it that we want to prioritize, and where can we cut? But we simply cannot keep growing a budget and have something that our residents can't afford. We know that to be true. So I think it's really reprioritizing and putting money in those things that give us the biggest bang for our buck. And water and your core services are those: police, fire, streets, and the like.
I'll agree, Bono. Please, got one more. Okay.
It's not fair that I'm going last because I'm the sound. Priorities first. I don't spend what I don't have to pay off the budget. I'll cut the unnecessary items off to pay off our debt. I don't like rolling on debt. You can take it down to the elementary level. You all have a household. You have your mortgage, taxes, insurance. You're going to pay on that first before you go on vacation. Right now, we did go on vacation. That needs to be cut out to where we pay off our house first. That's going to be the $205 million of debt that we have. I would pick on the debt. There's good debt, there's bad debt. Bad debt, let's use a car for an example. That would be the vacations that the city council has been going on. A mortgage can be considered good debt. That would be going towards the water lines, the streets, anything that's going to be working on our city as a whole. Public safety, the fire department, the police department. So that might sound redundant, but work on the priorities first, pay off what we have, and minimize.
Okay, one thing that I've noticed, okay, it's always mentioned that, oh, it's okay, we're going to spend this money, but we're going to spend it wisely. But the thing is that, why not say the truth? We're going to borrow, my dentist, new dentist. Anyway, we're going to borrow this money, and that's not being said. And the present borrowing will be added on top of the number that Lane said. Thank you.
Okay, before I take another question, there's media here, right? And you're with who?
Christian Reporter News.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Okay. No other media. Okay. It was feeling a little warm in here. Is it okay now? Well, I've been trying to figure out why. It's usually very comfortable in here. I don't know why it's a little warm. Maybe it'll cool off. I don't see a thermostat anywhere. I've already complained about it, so.
It's cooling off already. It's
Is
summer.
it cooling off a little bit? Okay. All right, let's take the next question. Robert.
My question is for Ms. Ranstead. She's the only one here on city council when this happened, but over the past year, I've gotten 3 of these letters that have the envelope has the city's return address and logo on it. Appears to be just a letter from the city. You open it up, and it's got the city logo, return address on it, and it's signed by Bob Salas, one of our city officials at the bottom. And it's really just a letter selling insurance. And she already knows that I'm against that letter. It's an insurance for the water line going from the meter to your house and for the sewer line going from the meter to your house. And I believe that, if I understand correctly, that was her that brought that to city council, her idea. The mayor was against it. Personally, I don't think we should be selling our city logo, our good name to any company. I asked myself for the same deal that insurance company got, that I could be the official looking city contractor, got no response from you or from Mr. Salas. But my question is, how much money have we taken in to date for selling our city logo to that insurance company?
There is a small rebate that the city gets, and that was allocated for emergency repairs to put into an account that can help.
Hold your mic up, please.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The rebate that the city gets goes into an account to help with emergency repairs for citizens in the community that are having problems in their homes that they simply can't afford to take care of, kind of like those that are involved in the community development block grant and home programs. But what he's talking about is a sewer and water line service contract. And this concept was identified as a need in the community by the WTOS, which I worked with when I was a city employee. And there were a lot of people in parts of our community that were in older homes that, trees or because of the drought were having significant water and sewer line problems. And so they were looking for some sort of relief because these are big ticket items, and if you're on a fixed income, it's a very expensive process. If you have a home warranty, this is something that's not covered. And so we looked at the National League of Cities, and they had a product that was not offered here. And so you're getting a letter that allows citizens to participate in that if they want to, but they're not required to. So, yes, the city has endorsed them. They've been endorsed by many other cities, Odessa, Wichita Falls, Abilene in our region. And it's just a product that you have the ability to take if you want it, and you can pass if you don't want it. I think there are a lot of citizens who need that opportunity that otherwise couldn't have it.
Can I follow up with a question on that? Why does it need to be, appear that it's a letter from the city instead of just from the insurance company? Just tell us like it is up front, because it's misleading. It makes those that are uninformed, that don't really read the letter closely, believe that this is coming from the city instead of just an insurance company.
Well, it's city endorsed. I mean, it is city endorsed, and that was an action by the council. This is something that we can have public meetings on, like we are with other things, to help explain it better. But I still think that it's a good product, and if you're not interested in it, you can pass. But it's a service that otherwise did not exist here.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from this side. How about starting in the back? Mary?
Incidentally, on the water, or the sewer lines, the city got, I think it was $40,000 for their logo. That's what they sold it for. And going back to Anna's question, recently at a state hearing on property tax reform, the president of the Texas Municipal League, which TML, San Angelo belongs to it, and they're a dues paying member, and each taxpayer through their taxes pays the dues. So essentially, PML is working for us. And their president was asked how much government is too much, and she was unable to answer the question even though it was asked a number of times. And in the last legislative session, TML, who again, taxpayers fund, lobbied heavily against Senate Bill 182, which would require ballot transparency on all bond issues. And this is from city, state, county, and any other taxing entity, including water districts, hospital districts, junior college districts, etc. And one of the things that would be listed would be how each voter's tax bill would be affected and how much the bond will cost in full, principal, and interest, and how fiscally responsible the local government asking for the bond and the debt has been up to that point regard to local debt service. So my question is to all of you, and answer however you wish. In your opinion, how much government is too much? Would you actively support a bond transparency bill? And would you also discuss your support with our local state representative?
Is that a question for all of them?
Yep. Or whoever cares to answer it.
Whoever wants to answer.
If the government is infringing on the personal property rights and the personal rights of the citizens, it's too much. Can you repeat that, the third portion of your question?
How fiscally responsible the local government asking for debt has been to this point? Or the part where would you discuss your support with our local representative?
Definitely, you have to communicate in all levels, all the way from the small departments of our city, all the way up to the state departments. That's including the governor, state representative, state senator that represents you in the state legislation. I believe the less government, the better. A lot of people are fed up with the infringements of personal rights that the government is putting on them, the fees, the taxes. And I would also support a transparency of that budget. All the citizens need to know exactly where their money is going. It shouldn't be hidden, it shouldn't be questioned, and someone should be able to answer it like that. At least get it, a question answered within 24 hours. So that's what I believe.
Are you okay to go down? Mary, I'm not sure what the backstory is on that, if there is one, but I think that we all want greater transparency in government, because in the end, you can look at me and say I'm government, but they're all trying to get there. And so in the end, there's not too much of a separation between us. I mean, we're sitting beside each other.
It goes with Anna's question as to the amount of debt that, A, we have, and the fact that most of us do not know the full amount of debt that the city, the county, the state, the school districts, et cetera, have.
I
We
think
don't
that,
have the
right.
principal and the interest in front of us on a ballot. Wall has got a bond issue up in this election, and they're asking for $19.7 million for renovations. But nowhere do they say what, and it's supposedly going to be for 25 years. They do not state on the ballot, all they say is for $19.7 million to be paid for whatever, it's 2 lines. And you go to the actual legal thing, and it states, you know, it's much larger than that. But nowhere do you see ever what the total amount of the bill is going to be. You know when you buy a car how much you're actually paying for the car. If you buy a $50,000 car, you know you're going to pay $75,000 for it by the time you pay for the interest. We don't know that about our million and billion-dollar bonds, and that's where the transparency comes in.
I think there's an issue though, when you go to sell the bonds, you're not sure exactly of the interest rate until it goes to sale, but let me get out of the weeds on that. You're asking if we support greater transparency on the ballot.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know, would I advocate for that? Absolutely. Would I call my, local representative, or my state representative and state senator? Absolutely. Because just like with Chris Cornell and his involvement in transportation, you can look at a ballot item and really need another paragraph to explain what someone's trying to achieve. We all want greater transparency, I believe. I certainly do. I want greater understanding. I want to know what the cost of the thing is, and like you're saying, I want to know what the long-term cost of it is, and have advocated that even at the city, which I think you've seen. Dwayne and I very often will see a project come up for approval, but nobody wants to quantify the ongoing expenses of that project, and we should demand that. Thank you.
Mary, I want to talk about the, how much government is too much government aspect of your question. If you watch on the city's TV channel and you see Daniel Valenzuela being interviewed by Anthony Wilson, being filmed by a camera you paid for, talking to each other about how to find a way to raise taxes on you so that they can pay their own salaries, and they're completely impervious to irony. They don't understand that we can see them saying that. It's like, what are you doing, boys? Don't you know that we can see you? It's a camera. But please, all of you that haven't done it, go to the city's website, go to contact us, then go alphabetically through all the offices that are, or all the personnel hired by the city. Just look, I'm not trying to pick on any particular individuals other than Daniel and Anthony. But look at the, but look at the titles of their jobs, and go all the way through the whole thing. Take the time. It'll take you about 30 minutes to go through the whole thing. Go through there, and when you get to the bottom of it, you think, great, this is just right. Well, we're going to have to disagree.
Well, I don't know what I can say that will be different than what the first three people have already said. Certainly, we want greater transparency. That's one of the reasons that Liz has held town hall meetings, and what I intend to do if I'm elected. Matter of fact, I've got one scheduled tomorrow night at Fernandez Restaurant on 9th and Jeb. Bottom line is we want to interact with the citizens. We want their feedback. We want to know what they want us to do. Certainly, we want to know up front what it's going to cost us. I have a copy of the city's budget sitting right in front of me for fiscal year 16. In there, it shows every single project, all the debt the city has, and what the payout is on each year. So, I mean, it's there, and it's available to every citizen. All you've got to do is have a conversation with the budget director.
Okay. Not all politicians are the same, and the government's not going to be the same with politicians with a different attitude. Like, I can remember my family, we lived outside of a small town, and my dad called it conservative, and then we, us kids, we were attacked by the liberal kids on our way home from school. Okay, and you want to talk about invasion, government invasion of your rights. How many of you out there remember North Lake Council? You remember that? North Lake Council? It's called O.C. Fisher now. Anyway, that used to be wide open to the citizens. They could go out there and camp and fish and do whatever they want. And then it was turned over to the Parks Department, and you got to pay to go out there. You got to support the parks, and why should we do that? That land was available to us in the first place, and look at what's going on here with the South Pole area and Twin Buttes now. It was just turned over to the Parks Department and also the Texas Forest and Wildlife. Okay, and they come up with this story that they're going to make so many improvements out there because it's going to be one of their hunting areas. Go north on Arden Road. There's one of those hunting areas out there I've hunted on. They've done nothing there, and they'll do the same. Okay, all it is going to be collecting money from us to send to Austin. Okay, and you look at the last council, we've got so many, time and time, like it's scary every time they meet because we know they're going to take rights from us. Okay, as far as for transparency on the bonds, okay, I talked to a lady, and her and her husband own many business, multi-million-dollar businesses. They will not do business in this city. And she told me, yeah, the rate on the bonds is good. It's good for her because she's buying them, but it's not good for the taxpayers. And this excuse that they can't find out what the rate is until they go to sell them. They need to set the rate before they decide to sell them. Okay, as far as for our state representative, Mr. Darby's called me several times when I probably criticized him, so I have a good relationship from him, and talking to him, I've learned a lot. Thank you.
You know, Mary, you asked a good question. As far as the how much government we need, as little as possible. One of the things in working with Daniel, we've sat down and I've actually looked at the budget like Harry. I went down, sat down with the budget director, and I went step by step through each of the units. There is room for improvement that we got to take a look at, but I can't stand up here and say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z immediately. Everything has a process, it takes time, and we've got to go through each and every one of these line items one by one. If anyone thinks that you can come in and just sweep everything under the rug and it's going to go away, you know it doesn't work that way. Government, we are taking a look at the number of directors, number of everything else that exists out there. We do got to reduce the amount of government. The city council is a government that you're entrusting us in. And I think the key thing for you tonight is, when you're listening to us, is who do you trust to reduce that government? And who do you trust to make the right decisions to reduce it? When you talk about Drew Darby, I've been on several meetings and several councils with him. I'll tell you, we're about 50-50. He makes good decisions and he makes decisions I don't totally agree with, and some none at all. So it's a relationship that you still have to maintain. You don't always have to be in the same ship with him, but you've got to at least be going in the same direction. Fiscal responsibility, that's paramount. We've all got to do that. Looking at the budget, you've heard a lot of numbers thrown out here. You really want to compare numbers and you want to take a look at what's out there. Take the time to go and sit down with our budget director. She will open up those numbers, and full transparency is the key to success. Unless you know what you're paying for, then it's going to be more and more difficult to get future projects passed. So I totally believe that everything needs to be shared. Whatever is going to come out, you need to know it. On the ballot, you may only see one or two sentences because you know how hard it is for people to make a decision. But there should be the background somewhere where you can see it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to recognize Jeff Davis. He's running for police chief. Stand up.
It's been a concern of mine and a concern of many people that I know, and it's pretty simple, but it's to all candidates. It's about the issue of the city streets. Just take Caldwell, Hughes, Bell Street, North Chadbourn, for instance. I mean, there are many more. It seems like the north side of town, if you split it by downtown forward, going to the north, that they are not addressed and they are not repaired on the same scale that we might have maybe Santa Rita, Southwest, College Hills, and such. And I know there are other bad roads, don't get me wrong, but they tell me each and every day, what's wrong with our roads? Why can't we get them fixed? Well, it's always been my question. I mean, I've had my house flooded 4 or 5 times on North Chadbourn, the one I have up there, because I have no curbing, I have no drainage, and yet I pay for water runoff, you know, because it all comes into my yard. So I just want to know what can be done about it, and how do you divvy up these, you know, streets as far as, you know, through money within the city, and where do we start? Is there any kind of system?
Before you answer that, I want to recognize another dignitary. Our mayor is here also. Is there anybody else here? All right, you may answer his question.
Jeff, I think the answer to your
Let him answer his question first.
Jeff, to answer your question, I think the fallacy was we did not have a program. And there, you know, when we talked about that we were in the thousands of dollars to fix all of the roads in San Angelo for several years, I think someone said kick the bucket. I think the key for success now to fix the roads, regardless of where they're in town, is to follow the plan that was developed. We don't need to be changing plans again, because that just delays it. We've got $80 million in the budget. It's going to be spent over the next, I think it's 8 to 10 years, depending on the speed. We've already done the x-rays. A lot of people were highly critical that we x-rayed our roads. And what I'd like to say is, let me break your arm and then you go to the hospital and you try to fix it without being x-rayed. That's what people were telling me about the roads. If you don't take the time to see what's underneath, and you don't identify where the concrete is, where it's broken, where the real power points are, then we're wasting our money. So you got to have some confidence in the city council. They did the right thing. Just like if my arm was broken, I don't want anyone to touch it until I know what's wrong. That's the way it was when the streets, and sometimes we don't do a good job of relaying to you what the x-raying was about, that we've got a good $80 million plan in place. And Jeff, I think the key for success for your area and the other areas, you've got to have the right councilman in your area that is going to stand up and deliver what you need in your area. You can't have someone like me that's in SMD1 taking all the funds. You got to make sure that you've got your best candidate on that city council to be fighting for, you know, your district just as hard as I'm fighting for mine. And I think we have a plan in place. It's execution time.
Okay, here we go again. He says we've got the money in the budget. No, we're going to borrow the money, okay? And on top of that $80 million, you're also going to borrow $40 million, which they say is going to fix the infrastructure under the streets, which they totally tear up. And I guess there is disparity in different areas of the city, and you can't always believe promises from a politician. I talked to a fellow up there on Blumentritt, and he's one of the city councilors, and he was promised so many things that road there is like an alleyway. You can't pass 2 cars on it, and they were annexed into the city. And as soon as they held the city accountable for their promises, which was to have the road brought up to city standards, first thing the city said was that it's not a city road, it's a county road. So they had to go back and find the original annexation plans and prove to the city that that was a city road. And still nothing has been done there. And okay, are you familiar with Florence Street? The south end there, the dirt part of that road? Those people for years have been trying to get the city to pave that road, just to pave it. It's a dirt road, it's a mud road in the center of the city. Okay, and okay, I agree with the plan to x-ray the streets and gather information, and that will all be placed in the GIS system. And eventually, that will give information on each and every street and what the condition of the road, last time it was repaired, and that information will be available to the supervisors, the director, and the people in the field. When they go out, they have a problem that they can just click a mouse. It's like the CAD system, you know, computer-assisted dispatch, what you guys are looking at now, the police department is. It's all automated and the information is easily available. And also, when they, okay, this has been talked about on city council, but nothing was ever done about it, that these people that go out and tear up the street and dig up the water lines or whatever, that should be repaired to the same condition that it was before, okay? And I think it's pretty easy for the average person to, you know, if you drive your car and it's bouncing around and you see potholes in the road, you know that road needs to be repaired. Okay, and I'll give you, and the way, I found this incredible. Okay, along my street, okay, the asphalt is eating away along the curbs. They came down, they sent the city or a contractor down there earlier this week, or it was last Friday, I think, yeah. And they only patched half of the street. Why didn't they patch the whole street? And then like this.
It's only 7 to 3 at the city.
Pardon me?
Give more than a day.
I don't understand.
Well, you're rambling on. Can we move on to the next guy? I mean, this is too much. You're not addressing the question. You're just back.
Well, I think I'm addressing the question, and that, you know, if you don't like it, if you don't like my answers, that's fine, but I'm addressing the question. Okay, there's always been money available if the city had put the money available, been more flexible with their budget to do the repairs. And there hasn't been a will in the city to treat all areas fairly. Thank you.
I'm probably not going to say a whole lot of things different than the first two speakers, but we do have a plan in place today. You heard me in my opening statement say, we just got to have council members that are disciplined enough to follow the plan and fiscally shrewd enough to ensure the plan is completed on time. Now, to Mr. Davis's point, I think there has been a time in the past where there could have been some areas of the community that were looked at a little bit different than some other ones. I don't think that's the case today. If you look at the plan that's in place, you'll see that the roads that need it most, and some of them are in the north side of town, are going to be the ones that we address first. So I'm going to pass it on and let Mr. Cantrell talk.
Chief Davis, I want to answer your question right. I've got to take exception to the idea that Santa Rita is overrepresented. I've gone down to Shane and Patrick, got an old map and plan of their repair and the seal code system and all that. And I was prepared to criticize Elizabeth for not bringing home the port and getting us enough roads worked on in Santa Rita. We're going to get Avenue N and Harvey Johnson Street with only rebuilds there in our 9-year plan. You're getting a lot more in other parts of the city. I feel like we pay a heavy tax dollar down in Santa Rita just because we're there.
Amen.
Look, go to Shane Kelton and Patrick Brewer's office. And they've got the maps, and I've got a copy at home. That's great. But Santa Rita is pretty badly underrepresented. Do something about it, Liz.
Okay, I have to agree with him. It is, I think, not true that Santa Rita has benefited beyond the rest of the city. It's quite the opposite. But there are bigger needs out there. And since I've been on the council for not yet 2 years, there has been no significant street work in Santa Rita. There's been a lot of patching where our water lines are breaking. Mackenzie Street is probably one of the craziest. Oh, where do you live? Yeah.
Mackenzie Street.
Pretty bad.
They're going to do the water pipes now.
But let me ask you this. You've been on the campaign trail. Nobody here wants to take on debt. I think most of this group agrees with that. but you want streets fixed. To have street reconstruction, and we're talking $80 million, 16 million, 5 lets over 10 years. That's how you do it. Because if we didn't pay for it that way, we may not be able to fund the police department. You know that between police and fire, that absorbs all of the ad valorem collection that we have. And so again, I think that this is, the reality is, what do we want, and what is the most prudent way to pay for it to get infrastructure that has a longer life than what we've been getting. So what we've been doing hasn't been working. And I like the X-ray because it gives us that shot of that street profile that we never would have had, so that we can concentrate on saving streets before we have total failure.
In response to what you're saying, I just mentioned Santa Rita.
It's okay.
And what it is it's everybody that's talked to me, including myself, I have the same ideas as they do. It just doesn't seem like you see the streets being repaired, on an even keel is what I'm getting at. And that's what I'm asking you, about the plan, what you have in place, how you're going to implement it, and what can you show the citizens as to how you go about it, because it seems like everything on the north end of town is pretty just devastated as far as roads, and so that, that's their concern and mine also.
Well, I think that, at least my perspective is, as long as I'm on the council, that I want to look at the whole city, and I believe what is good for the whole city will be good for Santa Rita, or College Hills, or Bryant Park, the area that I represent. So I don't want to be the one trying to get everything. And I tell my constituents that when they want me to go after something that I know is missing in the rest of the city, I don't think that's good politics. I don't think that shows integrity in my position. But I think that we know there are a lot of needs, and what we've done recently that we ignored for years and years and years was setting up that priority. What's the worst? And what has the most volume, and that's kind of how they got that metric, which tells us where to go. And I kept saying, I know Bell Street is bad, but prove it to me, and as soon as you do, I'm going to be willing to fix it, and Martin Luther King is the same way. So I think you're going to see a lot of work on the north side. The funny thing is going to be when everybody complains about all the construction. And Dwayne and I are ready to hear their complaints because it means we're getting something done.
Are you familiar, Mr. Davis, with Chisholm, Rodeo, Goodnight Trail streets over off Cox Road?
No, I don't think I've ever been on.
It's a pretty new establishment. I think they're about 10 years old, the houses over there. Right now, on April 19th, the city council just passed that they will be seal coating those roads. When's the last time your road in front of your house?
Not the last 10 that I can think of. As a matter of fact, I know it's been over 10.
It's been a misappropriation of funds in areas not being worked on appropriately and looked over. I believe in the older neighborhoods, they're going to have older streets. We need to maintain those just as much as we maintain College Hills or Santa Rita or Bentonwood. They're all going to be great, and it shouldn't be going off of the tax base. Just because someone pays $10,000 per year on taxes and someone pays $1,200 per year. That $1,200 per year house, the street in front of them should not be put on the back burner. We need to look at the city as a whole instead of by district. So if I'm on council, that misappropriation of funds isn't going to happen. We're going to work on every street appropriately and look at which one. We all know Bell Street. You don't need an x-ray to show that. X-rays will help, but if we're waiting on that to make a judgment, to get the job done, I drove on Bell Street 2 days ago, and I've heard many people that drive school buses, how much maintenance costs they have because parts are rattling off of their school buses. If you fix Bell Street, all that will go away.
Mine's going up 500% my taxes, and yet I've got no service. And Chadburn, like many other streets on the drainage issue, they just keep building it up when they do build it up. Well, now the grade, and I build roads, is probably 2 foot above curb line.
They
If
keep
there
doing
was a
quick
curb.
fixes. Instead of addressing the problem, they all do quick fixes, along with water lines. You mentioned water lines, and how many patches are on McKenzie. You go look at Park Street, you can almost measure it out every 20 feet. There's going to be a square patch about 2 of these tables. At that point, they could have replaced the whole line.
I work on Avenue B.
Wait a minute.
Avenue B,
Wait a
Brian.
minute, wait a minute. Did you hold your hand up?
Just a minute, and this goes into the whole thing. And 2 years ago, they come through and still
I'm losing
touching Avenue
control.
B. Within 2 months, all that had worn off, the street was rougher than it ever was, and they've never come back to fix it, never. You know, I mean, they patched here and there a little bit, you know, and that, to me, that was, I've been wondering the whole time, what a waste. You know, they didn't try to repair the street that came through real quick and threw down
Cheap material.
some oil and some gravel, and within 2 months, that street was rougher than it had ever been.
I'm not a fan of cheap material, I'm not a fan of cheap work.
It was a waste
That's
of
why
money.
our roads and parks, I think.
It was a waste of taxpayers.
Okay, we're getting short on time, so I would like to get some more quick questions. We've got some hands going up over here. This guy in the jerkin in the green shirt's been holding his hands, probably got sore by now. And I'd like for the answers to kind of start getting brief, because I want to get as many questions in as we can.
I was born and raised in this city. I've been all over the country almost, especially the western part. I have been in business for over 40 years.
Can you speak up just a little?
I've been in business for over 40 years. I know a lot of people. We have had business in the state. Y'all want me to start over?
Just go ahead.
Okay. My name is Nick Rodriguez. I was born and raised in this city. I had hell with the city. We are a city of problems throughout, all the way from our commissioners, all the way into other parts of politics. I represent San Angelo in minority organizations and the city in the past 30 years. And I have run into things that I see every day. I'm retired or retarded, one of the, what do you want to call it. I'm going to give this lady a little words about.
Let's keep your questions brief, because we are getting short on time.
Got a question?
How's that? I'm hard at here, and I came back from the military. The question I have is that a lot of y'all here don't know what's going in this city. What's going. This lady talked about things about her having problems. Well, I'm going to tell you now that if you don't look it up before you go to do something, and you apply for, let's say you go for a brake job. The other day I went to one. I know ladies that have been charged $1,500 for a brake job. Others that have paid over $900.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to get to your point, because we're
I'm
running out of
getting to a
time. I'm
point.
going to do like Rush Limbaugh.
I'm
Get to
getting
your
to a
point.
point. We in this city need some kind of office to help these people that don't know what's going on when they go out to get something done, okay? We need some kind of office to take care. We do have one, but don't seem to be working. A lot of restaurants, if you go see these restaurants, we had a business that sold ice machines and rented ice machines around here. We saw a lot of stuff going on in the food business. Some businesses recycling the food and things of that nature. We need that corrected. I don't know if y'all that are running for office have known this or have never looked into it. We have another problem with the code enforcement. I went through it. It took me 9 months through court. I finally got out of it.
Sir, I'm
Yes.
gonna have to ask you to, I'm gonna have to cut you off. You got a question, so, and I'd like for one person up here on the panel
Well,
to answer
I'm
your question.
gonna, okay, Miss Liz, you know about some of my problems.
Have we met before?
Yes, we have. You've been to one of my properties, and you saw it, you didn't do nothing about it. Since you've been with the city all these years, you know we have problems in the east side of town, like Tres Rios, okay, that area. There's 27 acres on one side, 37 acres on one side, and over 20 acres on the north side, okay? Why haven't that been cleaned?
Liz, can you answer that question?
Why hasn't it been cleaned?
She needs the mic. She needs the mic.
I don't know anything about
You don't know?
on 28th Street, but I know how I met you. It had to do with the zoning violation at your home.
Ma'am, it was a lie.
Well, I had to go
We
out
have
there.
proof on that.
You asked me a question, are you going to allow me to answer it? So it was a zoning violation because our city doesn't allow you necessarily to run a business in a residential area. Other people in the building know about that, David Nallen, the mayor, others, and this is kind of a typical complaint that city staff has to work. I don't see anybody trying to change the ordinance or to do away with that completely, but that's how we met. As for other areas in the community, some people advocate for less government, less involvement, leave you alone, and then others want you to go clean up the problem. So, you know, in the end, it's a balance. What do you do? Most of the time, what the city is doing is responding to complaints, more so than aggressively going after something unless the neighborhood has called it in. That's been my
I see you didn't do homework.
Okay, I need to get to the next question.
Okay, let me give you.
What's the next question?
Sir, I'll have to ask you to sit down.
The next question, is anybody got, somebody asked something about the water and garbage or something. Water, garbage, something like that.
I wrote mine down, so it won't take too long to get to it, but this is for Liz Grindstaff. Recently, you voted for an increase in the fire inspection fee from $25 to $172 for apartment complexes. When you were the assistant city manager, you tried to implement a $25 inspection fee on landlords. The town hall at the Presbyterian
I didn't
Church.
try to do that.
Well,
But
you were up there in the town hall.
I'll be happy to respond to that.
Okay. What other fees are you looking to increase, and why do we need to increase our fees?
Again, this is a philosophical issue that I think David and I continue to debate at every venue where there is such an opportunity. My personal opinion is that instead of having fees on the back of all citizens that may not use that service, that you put it on those that do. And so I think that's one way that we can reduce the tax burden on all citizens, is to have specific fees, again, for specific services or permits that you seek. You have discretionary income, and if you're going to seek that, then you pay for it, which allows us to drop the tax rate on everyone else that's not seeking the same service. With regard to the fire fee, the fire inspection fee, my question was at the council, is this something that we believe is required? And everybody said yes. And so if we're going to do that, then why don't we charge businesses the cost of doing that service so the person who's not in business doesn't have to financially support or underwrite that service? That is the greatest transparency, I believe, to be in government, is to associate fees and let those who seek those services pay for it and get it off the back of everyone else. So you asked about this, an event that occurred a few years back. We had a group, a housing focus group, that was approached by individuals who were very concerned about tenant conditions. And so someone on my staff went and looked into the way other cities managed minimum standards. And I believe, I would say I think there already is a minimum standard without an additional law per se. So this employee went out and saw what other cities were doing and had a sample ordinance. And everyone all of a sudden thought we were proposing that or promoting that. I was, and I hadn't even seen it. This was my employee, and I had to go into battle to defend a mistake that he made. Very, very poor judgment. He's a go-getter, and he got way too ahead of the issue. I don't even know that he fully understood the magnitude of the issue or whether or not there was a problem. So there was a meeting at St. Paul Presbyterian Church, I believe, about 250 people. And I had to stand up there and say, we are not proposing this ordinance. We want to talk about issues. We want to see what the depth of the issue is and figure out a way to deal with it. And what happened that night was ASU stood up and said, we will set up a mediation center. And we don't need any more laws. We don't need any more regulation on property owners or those that rent, that offer rental property. And everybody agreed, and they walked away, and it was a win-win for everybody. It was no additional regulation, and the problem was solved at the local level, which is where I believe government ought to work for you. So I will say it was my employee, and I have to own that. But I did not propose that ordinance, nor was I aware of that ordinance when it went out.
Who was the city manager at that time?
Harold Dominguez?
And he left shortly thereafter and went to Lubbock, didn't he?
No, sir. He went to Longmont, Colorado, probably 2 or 3 years after that.
We're feeling left out over here. How about us?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I addressed that to her because she's in town.
Yeah, no, I understand. We want some too.
What was the question?
Who's asking that? Oh,
What was the
the
question?
man with the big voice. The question was about
Fees?
an increase in fee that the city council approved for fire inspection for apartment complexes. It went from $25 to $172, which is a nearly 700% increase. And as I understand it, from what I heard, the city staff had requested it to be increased to $100, and then the city council went beyond that to $172. These things contribute to the higher rents.
There's a fundamental underlying reason for all that, and that's because they want more money, and if you don't stop them, they'll get it.
I got a follow-up question to that, Liz.
What about us? Yeah, you guys are, I'm starting to see too many questions. It's starting to feel like the presidential debate. She's not Trump. How about asking us? We've got District 1, we've got...
Let's don't associate her with the one running for president.
So, Mr. Armstead, you just said that by raising all these fees, we can expect our taxes to be lower.
I think you can take
You just said that
questions to city
get a
council.
reduction in our taxes. I haven't
Just
seen any
address it.
reduction in my taxes. Every year they go up. So, has there been some reduction that I missed because of all these fees going up, or can I expect to see one this year?
Well, I think in the end, if we stay on a path of fees for users, that should be an expectation. I mean, it's a reallocation of how you collect and how you allocate those funds. Fees are going, the tax rate can go up for a lot of different reasons. We want better streets, we want a safe water supply, and we have to pay for that somehow. But if you want to be truly transparent in your budget, quit making everybody else pay for something that your business needs that they don't need. That to me is transparency.
Can I ask another question? Mr. Aguirre,
Yes.
I'm going to start with you, and I'd like for everybody here to answer this. We've got a city budget.
Yes.
Our taxes are directly related to that city budget. Will you, and will all of you, do everything that you can to try to stay within that budget without finding new unnecessary projects that make expenditures outside of what we would normally expect for normal services?
Absolutely. In prior years, what I'm surprised is that our budgets continue to grow. Historically, when I was with Verizon as a president, we reduced the budgets. So because we're going through the oil situation now where we got decreased revenue for the city, So I think what we need to do and how we would do it is we sit down with each department and we start allocating cost cuts. Now, that may require some services to be looked at and reduced, but you absolutely have my commitment that we look at each and every department, and, we can't make a decision here, but we will find a way to allocate the cuts required so we stay within budget.
Well, I can agree with that. The fat in the departments has to be trimmed, okay? And I don't think we need 2 assistant city managers. I think one of those positions can go, okay? And also, you look at the past history of spending by the consecutive city councils, it hasn't been on the basis. It has been on frill, non-necessary projects. They haven't looked after the infrastructure, they haven't looked after our water supply, they have not looked after policing. And then a comment on the policing, okay, to build a new police station, that will be put in front of the voters, so the voters will get a say in that. And definitely, there has to be more accountability to the voters. The voters have to have more transparency, and there has to be cutbacks in the departments. I think a lot of the, not the frontline workers, but I think we have to trim the fat out of the management in our cities. Thank you.
Well, certainly we need to take a look at the budget. And as Trinidad said, in business, and David, you know this as well as anybody, in business, you have to justify every dollar that you spend. The city's doing that with the budget, and the council people are looking at it, and I think what we will do over the years is continue to ensure that the dollars that we're spending are being spent in the correct way. You've got to remember also that property taxes is only one source of the budget. That's sales tax. And that money comes from all surrounding areas in here. That's about 1/3 of the whole budget. When those dollars go down, then we need to cinch the belt up and look at what are necessary services to continue to do those.
By far the greatest expense in government is salaries. And I've repeatedly hit on the topic of reducing staff by examining who all would pay. But more than that, we're operating under what I think is the wrong philosophy of government. We allow consuming agencies to establish budgets, and then we send out taxing authorities to secure the money to realize those budgets. We need to reverse that entire process and bring it back to the people by referendum to establish how much money we're going to give them, and then let them establish their budgets after they're told what the budget is.
I certainly want to look at ways to reduce the budget, but I will tell you, if there's any way to save any money in one place, I might go put it in streets. Because right now, we have an $80 million plan in place, but we have $500 million in street problems. And so you can't do more with less when it comes to infrastructure. Again, what is the best way to address the issue so that you get the greatest life expectancy out of that capital asset? And I think that's always going to be important. You've said a lot of things about me. Most of you may not know me that well, but I'm the daughter of a World War II vet. My philosophy is about transparency and integrity and sticking to my word. So I'm not going to promise you one thing that I cannot deliver. If you want to know how to cut the budget, cut service, but then don't complain when the service isn't there. I think Jeff and his group, if you ask them to start with a zero-based budget, don't tell me what you had last year. Don't tell me you just want 5% increase or 5% less. What if you started with a zero-based budget and had to build up? That's a different way of budgeting in the city that we don't do now. And then you have to really defend every dime you're spending. I think that would be a real change.
part of the budget needs to be reevaluated, and the misappropriation of funds that I've hit on multiple times needs to go to where it's the infrastructure of our town, whether that be water lines, the streets, public safety, divided them into police and the fire department. Any unnecessary expenditure needs to be cut. Stay within the budget. I'm not saying cut the budget, but don't exceed it. I want to tap on the fees. It's my time for a rebuttal on that. Ms. Grindstaff says that the users are the ones that should be paying for this fee. I'm a landlord. The tenant is a user. I'm a user. We're all users. It's going to trickle down the tree all the way to where everybody's going to be paying for that fee. So it's not just one person, it's everyone. Everyone is paying the taxes. Now at $172 for a fire inspection fee that the owner is the only one being paid for it. The tenants are also paying for it because we're having to put it down and let them, we're not going to take it off. We're not going to do that. We're going to trickle it down and include that into the rate. Now, that city staff is getting paid 200% of what their job is being done for, through our taxes and through the fees.